Alright, this is how I want to start the video. What's up, guys? So, alright, today I'm going to talk about Machiavelli. So, I wanted to talk about Machiavelli because I was randomly hanging out with a business owner, and this guy is local to Orlando. I don't even want to tell you what he's involved with. Air conditioning type of stuff. And good guy, runs his own company. He had this regret that, like, he spent so much time working and building up his business, he didn't get a lot of time to, like, read. And so we were talking about, like, Plato, the classics, Machiavelli, everything. And he regrets that he wasn't able to read all these great authors and literature and things like that. And he said something like, I want to be like Machiavelli. I'm interested in that. And I stopped and I was like, this is such a good guy. You don't want to be part of Machiavellianism. That's like, in my mind, it's like evil. And, we didn't really talk about it then, but it got me on this, like, thinking, why do I dislike Machiavelli? Why do I hate people that use Machiavellian tactics? And to a general audience, if you guys don't know who Machiavelli was, or books like the 48 Laws of Power, which I've read. I've also read Machiavelli, by the way, The Prince. It's so subtle because the pursuit of power is appealing. Especially for men. I guess it could be for women too. But, you want to increase your status. You want to increase your, you want to be the number one. And there are tactics to get to the top of social hierarchies. All these tactics, the positive version would be, if you contribute to the group, to the tribe, then the tribe will reward you by increasing your status. So that could be through job promotions, it could be through working your way up a chain, a corporate ladder, things like that, right? But what Machiavelli pushed, and I'll get into specifics here in a second, is tactics to get the self ahead of others. And it's encouraging through use of deceit, lies, manipulation, tactics like that. And what I want to outline for this video today is outlining what is Machiavellianism, why is it so pernicious and subtly evil, and then can we shine a light on it and talk about that and see what better alternatives it would be other than following Machiavelli. Let's set the context and the stage. Where did Machiavellianism come from? And if you see me looking up here, it's because I got my ChatGPT script. So, historical context. Late 1400s, 1500s. Okay, late 15th century to early 16th century in Italy. This is before it was unified, was not a country of Italy yet. That happened much later on. I want to say the 1800s, 1860s. Italy wasn't unified. It was a collection of warring city-states: Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, and then the Papal States. And there was a lot of warfare and betrayal between these city-states, and it made stability impossible. Foreign powers, France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, which kind of like Germany, they often invaded or just interfered. They just interfered with each other's politics. There was this family called the Medicis. So the Medici family, they were super powerful. They ruled all of Florence. If you've ever been to Florence, you should go. It's beautiful. A lot of, you could see the Medici seal, the family seal everywhere you go. They ruled Florence, it says here, through intrigue, wealth, and violence. Florence experienced frequent coups, shifting from republic to oligarchy to religious theocracy, and then back again. So that's just some of the historical context. Economic context. There was economic pressure. Florence was wealthy. It was a hub in this day and age of banking, trade, and Renaissance art. And actually, I heard something, or I read something in a different book, that the system of double entry accounting was created in Florence. So what does that mean? To business people like me, that's like significant, because with Bitcoin, we're having triple level, how to describe this to you? So triple level entry accounting. So I know that my side of the ledger makes sense. I know that if I owe someone something or I am owed something. So I give you some money and then in the future you'll pay me back. And that's what double entry accounting is. So I'll owe you $500 in the future, or you'll owe me, and we write that down. And in the future, our books will agree with that. And so in Florence, they wanted to put people, instead of just bringing all the coconuts that you have and bartering with the coconuts, instead they created money. Okay. But then they went one level further, and instead of exchanging money, they put things on credit. So you'll pay me back in the future. And so what that is called is double entry accounting. So it's creating an imaginary ledger, or maybe not even imaginary. It's like a physical ledger sometimes, of writing down all your accounts in order. And so this is where banking comes from. You can put your money into the bank. The bank will then use that money, but then they'll promise you if you want to pull out your money, they can do that in a couple days. They just have to. So that's what double entry accounting is. I hope that I'm providing clarity and not confusing. With that being said, economic pressure. Florence was wealthy. Merchant families like the Medicis controlled vast economic networks and politics. There was war and factionalism. This meant that economic booms could collapse overnight. So, you build up your like a business or something, and you go to the Florence and you extend credit out to other people. You have to get involved with the Medici family. Medici. I might be saying that. I might be mispronouncing it. I apologize if I am. Medici. And so, these people would build up their wealth, but as it's explaining, this wealth could collapse like very quickly. Corruption and cronyism were standard in governance. Meritocracy wasn't a thing. So, if you're just the best at your business, you would want to, in an ideal world, the people that are better at something get more business because they're merit-based. But that wasn't what was happening back in Florence in that day. Florence had rising unemployment and inflation during wars. During wars, that makes sense. The government decides to spend more money, and then people end up paying for that. Hopefully you guys know, with the past couple of years, it's 2025 right now as I'm recording this, but the past 5 years we've had a lot of inflation. Prices go up. And apparently the elite were insulated from these issues. About Machiavelli himself, his name was Niccolo Machiavelli. He was born in 1469 until 1527. An overview of his career is he was born into a middle-class Florentine family. Some prestige, but not a lot of wealth. He became secretary to the Second Chancery of the Republic of Florence in 1498. He essentially became a top diplomat and a military organizer. So he worked for the Republic during the Medici's exile, and he helped organize citizen militias and was a key envoy to France, Rome, and other powers. He lost his position and was tortured and exiled when the Medici returned to power in 1512. He's famous for writing The Prince. He wrote The Prince in 1513 while he was in exile. And this was probably like a job application to Lorenzo de' Medici. It was never published in his lifetime. It just circulated privately. The Prince breaks down from classical political theory, like Plato and Aristotle, and it offers realpolitik. So he says, I took from philosophy, and I'm applying all those like values and things that you thought of, the good, the true, the beautiful, and then that was from Plato, really from Socrates, and then Aristotle sort of systematized that and wrote things down like almost like a modern day like biologist or something. And by the way, a lot of the Catholic Church and their teachings is based on Aristotle, just for what it's worth, just the doctrines and recording that kind of stuff. So Machiavelli took those ideas from philosophy and said, we're going to make, those are just ideals. Those are in the forms of like when you're sitting around thinking about stuff of what should be. But he wanted to talk about realpolitik. What is it actually? And I actually get the appeal of this. It's taking out of the theoretical and going, yeah, that's nice. It's good to be good. But in reality, if I'm trying to get one over on you, I have to get something ahead and be ahead of you. I have to subvert you. I have to lie to make sure that you don't know what I'm really up to. And so that is the origins of Machiavellianism. Realpolitik is power above principle. So I think that's my fundamental just disagreement with Machiavellianism, because I'm the type of person that believes principle should come first. So each of us, each man is ought to follow what your principle position is. And if you're not principled and you have no principles, then you'll end up doing anything. And I don't think that's a good thing, but that's the pursuit of power. Essentially, Machiavellianism, in the book, The Prince, it shows a deep cynicism about human nature. People are, quote, ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. This is a fundamental point. David Foster Wallace made this quote. He was a famous author, American, almost contemporary. He died in 2008. He said, evil people think everyone else is also evil, or everyone else is evil. So that's what it justifies the individual being evil. Because no individual thinks of the good people and the bad people aren't one of the good people. Everyone always thinks that, including the Prince, including Machiavelli, including all these people out there that think they're increasing their own power. And so a quote like that, ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers, if you think that about everyone else, all your competition out there, you'll do whatever it takes because the other guys are doing that. They're all deceivers and liars. So I have to be the person that, if I lie, it's okay because the other people are doing it. And so now I just have to, and I'm the better person. So, that's just like, it's a very negative view. There's no way we can make this work for everybody. It contradicts his later work. I didn't know this part. Discourses on Livy, which supports republicanism and shared civic virtue. Well, there you go. His philosophical background, it was deeply influenced by Roman history. This is, figures like Caesar and Scipio. I don't know much about Scipio, but this is the critique of right-wing authoritarianism, where you have individuals. People on the right, by the way, don't even think that this is a political ideology. They just think they're being themselves. But, whether they think it or not, this is just a classification that an individual, we can call it like Napoleon or like Trump now, or like famous figures in the past. I don't want to make the obvious comparison to dictators in the past, but these people, they believe power is the number one good, and individual power, and they'll do whatever it takes to get that. And it kind of takes a historical context to know if you're the hero or if you're the tyrant. The two look the same. It's very difficult to figure out. As a man, I love looking at powerful figures like Napoleon from the past, and I have a sort of deep respect for what it takes to get to that position, to be number one and the most powerful. But then the modern day liberal side of me, as a person that wants to be a civically good person, it knows the dangers of individual power and tyranny like that. So it's very interesting. In The Prince, philosophical background, he believed fortune, luck, rules half of human life. The rest is seized through virtue, which is strength, cunning, bold action. It's not virtue. This is spelled V-I-R-T-U. He admired Cesare Borgia, I don't know who that is, a ruthless warlord who murdered allies and manipulated the church. Sounds like a good guy. Let's talk about a couple interpretation points. In the topic of instability, the angle that Machiavelli was trying to pursue is he's trying to survive in a bloodbath. The Prince reflects desperation more than wisdom. In terms of economy, power at that time and now too is hoarded by elites. Corruption is normal. Corruption at that time was normal. Nowadays, I'm not sure we have a totally corrupt system, like it's unrecoverable. Some people would argue that. I don't think we're at that point yet. We do have legalized bribery in this country, but the problem is if you take away, like if a company can donate to a political action committee, a PAC, to a political candidate, if you get rid of that, then it becomes more corrupt and underground and like illegal in that way. So if they make it legal, at least we know where the money's going. So I don't know how to fix it as I make this video, but the author himself, going back to The Prince, he never got the job. His book is theory from the sidelines. It's not tested leadership, which is my critique of the whole thing, The Prince. In terms of legacy, hundreds of years later, we're still talking about The Prince, and people view it positively, but dictators use The Prince more than democratic leaders. You don't hear, usually, leaders of democracies aren't employing Machiavellian tactics until very recently, and I would argue Trump does that. This is a red flag. In terms of Machiavelli, he was no misunderstood genius, in my opinion. He was kind of an edgy political realist. He sold the world a toolkit for tyranny. And if you are someone who is trying to get personal power, become a leader, or get spiritual enlightenment, the book The Prince is a trap. Don't follow it. Don't use Machiavellian tactics. In terms of power, what it means in The Prince is, Machiavelli says, seize it by any means necessary. The ethical red flags of this is that the ends justify the means. So that's always dangerous. In terms of truth, Machiavelli says lies are tools. But the ethical red flag there is pretty obvious, that lying undermines truth. If you don't have truth, then how do people talk to each other? You don't have trust. It undermines reality itself. In terms of people, Machiavelli says in The Prince that people are there for you to manipulate them. Don't serve other people. And the obvious ethical red flag here is that it views humans as means, not ends. Whereas I view people and of themselves as the end goal. So if I'm here to talk to you, I want to make your subjective experience better. I'm not trying to get one over on you. And so anybody that in the workplace that tries to get one over on you is using Machiavellian tactics, and you should watch out for that person. In terms of religion, Machiavelli in The Prince says it's mostly used to pacify the masses, which is very cynical. And I think that's a total betrayal of spiritual integrity. And, the quote is, "This isn't just strategy, it's moral surrender dressed as pragmatism." Let's talk about the ethics of fear versus love. A couple quotes here. "Fear can control for a moment, but it breeds resentment, paranoia, and isolation. Love earned through virtue and consistency scales across generations." Machiavelli was writing for rulers, but people today read it for influence. I think that is somewhat of a subtly good point, where if you are like a college-age student, and I was this person at one point, so this is why I'm saying this, and you don't know anything about anything, you've never been in a leadership role, you don't know what you're doing, right? Let's just say you're a young person. If you want to read The Prince and Machiavelli, and you go from an innocent person to a more knowledgeable person, I think that is a good thing. But if you start to use the tactics and get, unearned things over on other people through these tactics, lies, manipulation, through Machiavellian means, I think that's a bad thing. And this is where it gets dangerous. This isn't just about kings. It's about creators, CEOs, politicians, cult leaders, anyone chasing status. The influence and the dark influence of The Prince. Modern echoes. Okay, let's talk about hustle culture. It shows up with fake it, manipulate, grind people down. That's negative. Social media gurus. Perception is reality, not truth and not depth. I get that phrase, like, oh, perception is reality, because in terms of like marketing and business, it kind of is true, but you don't use that to hurt other people. In terms of political cynicism, trusting no one and just winning. That's what it takes to win in politics. And it's a very Machiavellian system in that way. And I think that's a bad thing. And trying to navigate those waters, I don't wish it on my worst enemy. Esoteric circles. They use knowledge to control, not to awaken. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to bring enlightenment. I'm trying to, for myself too. It's not just like me knowing stuff and telling you guys. I'm literally looking through ChatGPT, like I'm getting help, but I'm working through all this. I have read The Prince, Machiavelli, and I've thought so much about it. And then when people in my life bring it up too, I think of like, it's almost like I'm arguing against them, and I say, all right, Michael, just save it, make a video about it later. And then it's kind of like archived, and it lives on this channel for, and I'll probably reference it. I'll probably watch this video like years from now and be like, I could have edited down my thoughts, I could have said this better, but it's a work of art, it's a process, and what I'm trying to do is, bring awareness and attention to a book that's hundreds of years old that still has relevance today. Machiavellianism feels smart, but it eats your soul. It takes away from the integrity that you've built up. And so I'm going to expand on that part. What does that mean? That means that you as a human, as you develop and mature, when you're young, people tell you must do right and wrong, there's good and bad. As you become an adult, you realize that if you do evil things and no one finds out, it's no problem. And you're like, where's the problem? Where's the problem? Oh, I can just keep doing evil things. The problem is that it eats at your soul, and that part no one tells you about, and then you just have literally an ugly soul for like the rest of your existence. And I mean, all of us can feel this. Like after you tell a lie or after you do something you're not supposed to be doing, and then you sort of feel guilty or bad about it later. And, some of us, and this is where the evil comes in, they'll do the evil thing and then forget about it. And then that's like a whole practice. I got into like chaos magic a little bit, which I stayed away from it because that is the form of chaos magic that people talk about. There's nothing actually magic happening. It's just that what they encourage is that you should go do anything in the world and have no consequences for it because the material world doesn't matter anyway. So it's like almost a Gnostic element. I know I'm going above and beyond the theme of this video, but this is all part of my life philosophy that as an adult, each of us has to figure out good and bad. And if you do bad without people finding out, it hurts your soul later on. And people will think that's not important. Your soul is real. It's a real thing. You can't touch it and feel it, but it can be altered and manipulated, and it can be improved, and it can be ignored. And all of these things are, I don't think it's very good to hurt people, even if you can and get away with it. There might be a concept of karma. I'm not sure, but I know it's not good for your soul. I know it eats at it. Let's talk about some contradictions. So the weirdest part about all this is that Machiavelli didn't even live the way he's describing in The Prince. In The Prince, he's describing how people ought to do it in that role. So meaning you're not the leader and you're not a peasant like nothing. Like you're in the court of the king, but you have some power and you're trying to get more power. So that's who his audience is. It's the prince. And Machiavelli was sort of in that position, but he wasn't actually there doing that. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but he recommends don't follow anyone that does the things in his book. So in the book, Machiavelli says don't do these things, or don't trust anyone who does these things. So it's a contradiction. Apparently in Discourses on Livy, Livy, he praises the Roman Republic, civic virtue, and shared governance. Okay? He never ruled. Machiavelli, he never ruled. He wrote The Prince while exiled, trying to get back in with the elite. It was a political audition. It was not a life philosophy. So what does all this tell you? Even Machiavelli didn't take his own advice. And so finally, this is kind of my mini rant that culminates in this, that I get it. You want power. You want impact. You want people to listen. Real power is sustainable. I believe it is soul-aligned power. I don't think it comes from tricking other people. I think it comes from your character, from telling truth. I think it comes from the true, the good, and the beautiful. I think it comes from clarity. I think real power comes from becoming someone worth following. I don't think you need to be a prince. I think you need to be a pillar. And then finally, got an outro here. But really, the important part I've already covered. I want you guys, if you're curious at all, pick up The Prince, read through it, maybe type in like a ChatGPT, summarize this book for me. Just something, if you're curious, if you've never picked it up. But if you are going to read it with caution. And then, more importantly, if you go out into the world and interact with other people, do the right thing, be a good person. I'm trying every single day. I've in the past not been a good people. I've been sort of Machiavellian in some of the ways I'm describing, and it didn't have a good effect on my soul. Like, it just, I don't even have like specific stories for you guys because I never did anything like big or bad. I mean, just nothing. It's like tricking people or lying to them or viewing them like, oh, you're inferior to me because you don't know as much as I do. That's so silly. It's like, instead, what I try to do now is inform people. If I know something that you don't, bring it up. Say it in a way that is in a teacher mindset spirit. Like, I want to help other people. And if they don't want it, that's okay. But I'm here in that capacity to give people that guidance. It's helped me in the past when people outline certain things and provide guidance. I go through I go to philosophers for ancient wisdom that we can bring into the modern day, and I think all of that culminates into why we listen to certain books and why other books are net bad for society, like The Prince. So, okay, that's everything. If you listen up to this point, you got to like the video, subscribe. Thank you so much. If you have any comments, let me know. Bye for now.